everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, stakes action for the DRF race of the day for Friday, March the 29th. It's race number 9 at Oaklawn Park. Let's take a look at the field for the Temperance Hill. $200,000 is the purse. We are going a 3-turn mile and a half, and we have a big, giant field, Mike, which is nice to see in these longer distance races.
Yeah, it's true enough. Usually, I guess maybe I'm just too used to these races being run in New York and the dirt ones. They get 5 and 4 horse fields all the time. This one's got 13. It feels like a lot of different horses can win here. I will say, though, this is one of those fields that's got a bunch of horses in here, and some of them might get bet that I just don't like at all.
A lot of question marks in this race. Some horses coming off layoff, some horses trying to find their back form that just hasn't been there recently, and a race with potentially a surprising hot pace. As we take a look at our Time Form US pace projector, red bar scenario, classic Causeway has not been seen in a while, but we know his way to win is when he gets to the front, and he'll have to work from post position 12 with a short run into the first of 3 turns. Speed Bias, the 7, came from off the pace last time out. Didn't think that was the trip he wanted. He likes to be close.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'll go so far as to say I think this pace is going to be fast, but it should certainly be legitimate. And I guess a lot of that hinges on classic Causeway, who does like to flaunt his speed and might be fresh off the layoff.
Horse with the fastest late pace rating from Time Form US is the number 1, Decision Maker. And this horse to me is an automatic contender simply because he was claimed out of his last race by Michael Maker and immediately stretched out in distance. We've seen it happen time and time again, usually on turf, but Maker seems to have a feel for what horses are going to improve at longer distances. Here's Decision Maker coming off of a slow-paced race last time out where he just couldn't make up any ground.
Yeah, I never really made any kind of an impact there. Maker, though, did see fit to reach in and claim him. And you're right, Dan. I mean, if nothing else, you just sort of take a second look because it's Maker claiming him and stretching him out in distance. And this horse has won at 1.25 miles on dirt in the past. So it's not like he can't get the distance. It's just a question of how well you think he matches up with this field.
The number 2, Ethereal Road, goes out for trainer Ron Moquette, and this horse has very good form at Oaklawn Park. He was second in the Rebel last year, and maybe he's just returning to form off of a pair of 90 Beyer speed figure efforts. Let's watch his most recent start, a second-level allowance earlier in the month. Again, the pace wasn't very fast in here. He's going to rally for second behind the favorite. The 4th-place finisher came back to run 3rd at this level with an 87 Beyer. Keep in mind, however, he's cross-entered in the opener, a second-level allowance on Arkansas Derby Day.
Yeah, this is the horse that's winning this race is now 2 for 2 on dirt with a couple of fast figures. So maybe he just bumped into a good one there, Dan, and he was clearly second best. And I guess he ran fine in there. I didn't really love his performance 2 starts back, going 9 furlongs. And overall, I'm just not sure that I think this horse is like a stakes quality horse. He ran some okay races last year as a 3-year-old, but I was never a big fan.
And the distance is a big question as well. He will be stretching out for the first time in his career, and we've seen these closing horses at middle distances. Sometimes that does not translate at all to being a stayer. The 3 is OP Firecracker. This horse tried some better runners last time out in the Razorback Handicap, Octane, Magic Tap. They're decent runners. He gave an even performance. He was likely overmatched. This distance, I think, is going to be fine for him. It's all about whether he's up to the level of being a stakes horse at this point on dirt.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Yeah, he does have to prove that. We'll see if he gets the distance. I'm with you. I mean, at least there's some pedigree there to suggest he'll get it, but you never know until they try it. And more than anything else, then his last 2 races are good. Maybe he's in the best form of his life right now. Even he's another one. That race 2 starts back going the 9 furlongs. He had every chance to win there. To me, he wasn't good enough, and this is a tougher field.
You gotta love a horse like Double Crown who runs just about every week. It doesn't matter the distance, and it certainly doesn't matter the track. He racks up the frequent flyer miles, whether it's Oaklawn or Laurel or Aqueduct, and he's got some back class. He pulled off a big upset in a graded stakes race in New York a while back, but that race was going a mile. His last race, on the face of it, doesn't look very good. They returned him in 2 weeks at Laurel in the Harrison E. Johnson. Chef's Bullet, though, is a horse that's improving. I think the pace of that race was a lot faster than it looks on paper because the horse to beat was Nimitz Class coming off the big class drop. He went to the front, Double Crown pushed him, and those 2 horses had nothing left. The 2 closers got him. That being said, I want to see it at 1.5 miles.
Yeah, I just don't really like that. I've never liked longer distances for this horse. I certainly don't like 1.5 miles for him. I'm a huge fan of this horse. I just don't really want to bet him against this field.
Mr. Lucas going to take a shot with the 5 Gamekeeper coming off a win in a maiden race, going a mile over a muddy track. So potentially a ton of different things thrown at Gamekeeper on Friday, but he is game to win because the horse on the lead with the short stretch has an advantage, and Gamekeeper's going to win and win pretty easily.
Yeah, they're well clear of the rest of this field. It was certainly a move forward for this horse. It was on a wet track, so make of that what you will. They're going to stretch him all the way out here and move him way up in class. I mean, I feel like there's way too much going against him for me to like him in here, but maybe he'll like the distance.
The 6-strong Tide is a true stayer, whether it be on turf or on dirt. Was fourth in this race last year. You could argue last year's edition of the Temperance Hill was tougher. The third place horse came back to win a stake at Churchill with a 97 buyer. He was in good form before the layoff. He hasn't run since the summer where he scored at Indiana Grand. He can be a lot closer to the pace than he was in that race. So he's pace adaptable. He should be fresh off the layoff, and distance isn't an issue.
He also ran in this race last year off of a very long layoff, and he ran well, as you mentioned. I think that was a better field than this one, and he ran fine in there. He's one of the few horses in here where the distance just isn't really a question for him. He wants the 1.5 miles. He gets it just fine. He's good on turf. He's good on dirt. I mean, I think this horse is an easy one to make a case for in here. He's just got to be ready off the layoff.
Lots of minor awards for the number 7 Speed Bias, who's hit the board 9 of 17 without winning. He ran a good second in the Pimlico Special last year, although you can argue he had everything going his own way on the lead on a track that might have been favoring his style. His last race was the Razorback Handicap, and he just found himself off the pace and perhaps worse, all the way on the outside, Mike. I think the trip didn't work out. I think Pratt switching back to him, he's going to be up close.
I agree. They got to revert to more aggressive tactics this time and just see what happens. We've talked about this horse a lot since that Pimlico Special, Dan. I'm just going to be surprised when he runs another triple-digit buyer. I just think he took advantage that day. I don't like anything he's done since then, and I see no reason to think he's going to be better going 1.5 miles.
I'm the president, potentially only member of the number 8 Hayes Strikes fan club, but I don't think he's without a chance in this race, Mike. He's got a little bit of back class, especially if you give him some pace to run at. And I just didn't think that was the case last time out in an off-turf race at the fairgrounds where they went 24 3 of the quarter, 48 to the half. He was running on at the end of that race. I think he's racing himself back into shape. This is his third start off of a lengthy layoff, and I do think he classes up with this kind of horse. 15 to 1, I'd throw him in there somewhere.
I'm going to agree with all that stuff, Dan. This isn't necessarily an easy spot for him, but he showed some flashes as a 3-year-old to make it think he could be a stakes kind of horse or a graded stakes kind of horse. He started off the layoff now. He ran fine last time. He's going to probably just sit back and make a run in this race, but I feel like he's one of the horses in here who's never been that far. I think he might get the distance.
As a 3-year-old in 2021, the number 9 Mask Parade did some good things. He won the Ohio Derby. He was third in the Jim Dandy, and for one reason or another, he really never got back to that form after a solid enough 4-year-old campaign. He was claimed for $80,000 2 starts back. His most recent race was his first start off a little bit of a layoff, and he faced a nice horse. The winner came back to run second in a starter allowance with an 88 buyer speed figure. He's got to prove it that he's back at this form that got him into stakes and graded stakes a couple of years ago.
He found a pretty tough spot, it seems like, off the claim last time and off the layoff. And maybe he just really needed that race, Dan. I guess the real question is he ever going to get back to that, brief flash of form that he showed as a 3-year-old? He got good for, a couple of races, but he never really built off that. He had a terrible campaign last year as a 5-year-old. I mean, I don't know where he is right now. I guess it's interesting that this is the race that Diodoro picks out for him.
Command Performance, the number 10, is another horse that began his career with a tremendous amount of promise. As a second start maiden, he ran second in the Champagne. He was 3 to 1 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile of 2021, but it took him a long time to win after that. He still hasn't proven himself at the stakes ranks. Maybe this distance is what he wants. I know you've always tried to make him a horse.
Yeah, I have. And I'll tell you what, I think he is a horse. I've always thought that longer distances were going to suit him. I kind of like Joe Sharp stretching him all the way out here. He didn't run well in that most recent start, Dan, as the favorite. I don't think cutting back from 1 mile 3/16 to a mile with a short stretch, I don't think that this horse wanted any part of that. His form before that, though, better than it looks on paper. If he can get the right kind of trip in here, I'm going to expect him to be there. 20-1 on the morning line. I'm using this horse.
Master Game is the number 11, and I think he was up against it a little bit last time out at the fairgrounds, wired by an even money shot, but making up some late ground at the end. The problem is that was a $30,000 starter allowance. This is a real tough spot for a stakes debut, not to mention stretching all the way out.
Yeah, I mean, just another horse, so you just have to. I think you can only look at him on paper and maybe guess that he's really going to like stretching all the way out in distance, and it's going to lead to a big jump forward because just based on what he's done, and I know he's in good form right now, but just based on what he's done overall, he looks like he's in too tough here.
Classic Causeway is the 12, a four-time winner, but 3 of those wins are graded stakes races. He swept through the Sam F. Davis and the Tampa Bay Derby in 2022, and then he put him to sleep when he wired him in the Belmont Derby in his turf debut, going 1.25 miles that year. Kenny McPeak thought he was a European turf horse last year. He ran him 3 times over there. I'm not sure what that was about. So they're returning him off of a pretty long layoff at a very long distance, but he does have speed and he does have back class.
And he can stay. I guess you could look at him and say that. I don't know, Dan. I get that he was grade 1 win and then grade 1 placed in his first 2 starts on the turf as a 3-year-old. I've always thought he was a way better dirt horse. So I'm hoping that they sort of point for a dirt campaign this year. I don't know if this is the right spot. I don't know if 1.5 miles is the right thing to do off of the layoff, but I think he's talented enough to beat this field, especially if he gets loose.
Make no mistake, the 13 Red Run fits with these kind of horses. He was stakes placed going 1.5 miles around this time last year at Churchill Downs. He was running against the likes of Warrant, who was a decent marathoner, and Next, who was the best marathoner of 2023 on dirt. Racing on turf his last few starts, of course, that's where he's going to get the distance. He's the kind of horse that might get the right race flow, and for Maker, I'm expecting him to be kicking late.
Me too. I like this spot for this horse maybe more than anything else. He's good on turf, but he's also good on dirt. He seems like he really wants distance. I guess you could argue that post 13's no bargain in here, but I thought he would get the right trip in here. I think this is a great spot for this horse.
Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Lots of Derby preps coming up over the next few weeks. Keep an eye on DRF video. Let's take a look at our top picks for the Temperance Hill on Friday. Red Run from off of the pace, Mike. This horse is dangerous.
Yeah, I just think it's a good spot for him. We'll see if he can work out the right kind of trip in here. I don't think I'd go, too low on price with this horse. He's 4-1 on the line. I certainly wouldn't take anything less than that. Command Performance, the 10's the other horse for me. Big price, stretching all the way out for this horse. I got to use him one more time.
Well, we'll see if Classic Causeway is sharp off the layoff. I would expect him to be. I think he's going to go to the lead. The question is, does speed, bias, or another horse go with him? I think Classic Causeway, he's proven he can put him to sleep on the lead in the past, albeit on turf. We'll see if he can do it off the long layoff. 13, 10, 6, 8 for Mike. 12, 6, 7, 13 for me. And the Temperance Hill on Friday. Good luck.